What's up you guys, today I'm going to show you how I installed my AMS widemouth downpipe on my Evo X. Start by spraying some penetrating oil on the bolts you're going to remove. I like using liquid wrench, it's very good. First off, I remove the heat shield to be able to spray penetrating oil on the downpipe bolts since they're going to be the main bolts of concern that could be seized. If you're short on time, let the penetrating oil soak for at least 15 minutes. But if you have time, spray them 24 hours before removal and spray some more every hour or so. This could potentially save you a lot of headaches from a broken bolt. Attempt to break them loose nice and easy, maybe 6 hours in. If they still don't budge or only move slightly, continue to spray the penetrating oil and let it do its job. Remove your cover so you don't damage it, it just pops right off. Remove the strut bar to free up more space to work with. There's 3 14mm hex nuts on each side and 2 in the middle. If the strut bar is stuck, jack up or lower the car to break it free. Once you remove the strut bar, reinstall your hex nuts so the struts don't fall off. Jack up your car and spray penetrating oil on the bottom downpipe bolts, exhaust bolts, and the oxygen sensor. Once the 24 hours are up, we can begin the removal process. Start with the oxygen sensor first because if it's seized, you need the downpipe to still be installed when you use a breaker bar on the oxygen sensor if needed. Fortunately for me, liquid wrench did its job and it came out pretty easily. Next, we can unbolt the exhaust from the downpipe. Next, we attempt to remove the downpipe bolts. If they break free at first, but then get stuck, spray some penetrating oil and tighten them back on, then loosen them again. Go back and forth like this if needed to avoid breaking them. But hopefully the liquid wrench did its job and you'll be able to remove them no problem. This stud had a hex nut on each side. I started to remove this side with a small ratchet wrench, and it actually freed the hex nut in the back. This side was seized, so the hex nut was unbolting together with the stud. The stud was too long and it hit the downpipe, so I couldn't take it completely out. So we're gonna come back to this one later. From the bottom, we're going to remove 2 brackets that are in the way. One bracket is held on with 10mm bolts that can be removed with an extension on the impact. The other bracket is bolted on from the downpipe to the engine. Next, we're going to remove the bottom downpipe bolt. The easiest way I've found to do this is with the subframe off. But the next best thing is to take a long ass extension or series of extensions and go to town with the impact. This stud was missing a few more turns, but with all of the other bolts off, I could pull the downpipe back and finish removing the stud. Make sure you remove the old gasket, and I like to clean the surface so the new downpipe and gasket seal properly. Remove this cover to have more space to work with. We're taking the downpipe out through here. I like to reinstall the bolts I can to avoid losing them. If throughout this install you ever forget why you're doing this cover reminds you why. Now that we have more space, we can finish unbolting the oxygen sensor if you haven't already done so, and just move it out of the way. It takes quite a lot of wiggling around, but you can take the downpipe out through here. This is the downpipe I'm going to be installing, an AMS widemouth downpipe. I love this downpipe and let me tell you why. If the gasket is misaligned or badly made, it could significantly block the airflow into these two small openings. But with this huge opening, there's no risk of that happening. It is also one single piece. Other downpipes are two pipes welded together, and just by looking at them you can tell that the airflow is going to flow out more smoothly with the AMS downpipe. AMS website also claims that it is the most power producing and well designed downpipe on the market. You have to be careful when installing this bolt because if it's too long, it will hit the downpipe before it actually tightens it on. So I went and bought these high heat flange bolts, M10 by 1.25 and 30 millimeters long. And together with a lock nut, it will tighten the downpipe just before hitting itself. The AMS downpipe comes with a replacement stud. It is important to note that one side is longer. The longer side should face the downpipe. But personally, next time, I'm just going to use a bolt instead of a stud. Now we can insert the downpipe through the bottom and begin the install. Getting the widemouth gasket installed in the correct orientation is a bit tricky since it looks the same, but here I show the correct orientation and just match it with the new one. There are 3 holes that are closer to each other. Those 3 should face the bottom. Then the highest bolt hole should be towards the left. Insert the gasket into the proper stud and thread in the hex nut. Or hold the gasket together with the downpipe and thread in a bolt if you don't have the studs anymore. You can use a very long bolt just to hold it in place while you thread in the rest of the bolts, then replace it afterwards. Thread in your rear facing bolt. Make sure to thread in every bolt by hand several turns before using an impact or wrench. This bolt here may be very tricky to access from the top. But from here, you can see if the downpipe, gasket, and the hot side holes are aligned, or if you need to adjust. Then you can thread in the bolt. What I did was to tape the lock nut and the bolt to my socket with a very long extension and thread it in from the bottom. You can now tighten down all of the bolts and hex nuts. For the rear facing bolt, I had to use a very small ratcheting wrench. Since your oxygen sensor is out, it's a good idea to clean it now. I like using carburetor cleaner and a wire brush on it. Before bolting on the oxygen sensor, I twist it backwards so it actually unwinds when I bolt it on. Clean the mating surface to avoid any exhaust leaks. The AMS downpipe has an extra O2 bung that I have to block off for now. The plug is included, but I used a crush washer from a set of spark plug non-foulers to make sure it doesn't leak. Bolt on the exhaust to the downpipe. I face the smallest socket size this way so I can use the impact on it. We can now tighten down the oxygen sensor. Reinstall the Evo plate. Reinstall the metal brackets. Reinstall the heat shield. Reinstall the strut bar. Reinstall the engine cover and you're done. As you can see, it's not a terribly difficult install. It's all about patience for this one. If you let the penetrating oil do its job, it's much easier. I hope this video helps you guys out, and if it did, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And if you didn't like this video, subscribe anyway, it's free.